Welcome back to Light Talk, where everyone can be themselves and tell their own unique paranormal and supernatural stories and experiences, and with a safe and supportive community. If you have a story you would like to share, email me at lighttalk423 at gmail.com. And while you're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe button. But today I am so excited to have this guest. She has so many stories that she's going to be talking about. And I want to give her an absolute warm welcome to the show. So I'm going to hand the mic over so we can get started. So go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself and we'll get going.
Okay, all right. I grew up in Colorado my whole life, and I come from a family of five siblings. Um, and I guess I'll start from childhood where I was having, as a young child, I would always have dreams, very vivid dreams, lucid dreams. But as a young child, of course, I didn't have the label of lucid dreaming. But there was one that was very interesting because I would have this frequently. And it would be where I was standing in a living room of a house with a big picture window. And I'd be standing in front of the window and I would begin to watch myself fly by on a magic carpet. And I was always, very, in awe in the dream of, that's me on there. That's me on there, and I was kind of, really fascinated. And I remember the colors of the carpet. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was purples and greens and golds and, tassel-y and, it was pretty wonderful. But I do think that, that is the main memory that I have as far as knowing something really meant something, even if I didn't understand it, I knew there was a specific reason why I was, having this dream. Um, and then as a little girl, I kind of lived out in the country, but there were country neighborhoods. There was a distance to walk to any of my friends' house, not too far. It would be maybe a 10-minute walk or something. It wasn't far, but you did have to walk. And I every single time I would walk to my friend's house, I would feel like I was being watched, and I would feel like, most of my life I felt, kind of almost paranoid of, always looking over my shoulder to see if someone's watching me or, if I'm in danger in any way. And I was born into a religious family, and I was taught that if you just mentioned, said in the name of Jesus Christ, please keep me safe and protected, that no harm would come to me. And so as a child, I would find myself walking to my friend's house and just, no breath in between, thoughts or mouthing it or speaking it or whatever. It was just constant. In the name of Jesus Christ, please protect me. In the name of Jesus Christ, please protect me, kind of thing. And, later in life, I recognized that I have always been surrounded with spirit, and so later in life, it was, a big relief to understand, that that's all it was spirits. I wasn't actually in harm, it was just, I was definitely not alone. Interesting. And as I say that right now, in the latter part of my life, I have physically been alone in many ways. And, I'm kind of piecing that together right now. And in this moment, of the reminder that I truly am never alone, kind of thing. So that's interesting. Um, then, later in my life, well, I guess I should say, I had kind of in my family, I always knew that I was loved. And I had wonderful parents in the way that they really just wanted all of their children to be, happy and fulfilled, and I had a pretty beautiful childhood in some regards. On the other side of it, I had some challenges that I didn't feel like I could open up to my family. Even walking to my friend's house, there was no one to talk to about that. This was my own little world, and I had to try to navigate it on my own. And so, I was molested a couple of times. When I say a couple of times, by two different people. And and so I had different challenges like that. But I'll get more into that a little bit later, but well, I guess why not? Go ahead. When I was in junior high, there was a new kid in town kind of thing. And he had a reputation of kind of taking advantage of girls and, that kind of thing. I'd be lying if I didn't say I had a crush on him. But we began to hang out a little bit. And he is the first person that I spoke of being molested. And it was really, really interesting because, I remember where we were walking and how I was feeling and the whole conversation. And he told me, and mind you, he was in, eighth, ninth grade, maybe, and he directly told me, he said, Lisa, he said, if you do not tell your parents in 3 days, then I am going to tell my mom. And he said parents / somebody, and, of course, I did not tell my family. And in the religious upbringing, that I came from, I mean, there was a lot of guilt associated with, anything sexual, there was just an immense amount of guilt that, and so I felt very bad and dirty, And so the 3 days passed, and of course I didn't, tell anyone. And then all of a sudden, one day at school, I'm called into the assistant principal's office, Mr. Hindergaard. And he was an angel for me. He was an absolute angel. I'm going to try not to get teary.
It's okay. We're here for you. We are here for you.
Thank you. But he looked at me straight in my eyes. And he said, Lisa, he said, did this man touch you? And with the strength of Ray, was my friend, who gave me the 3 days, I could hear his voice in the back of my mind. And I said, yes, he did. And he looked straight in my eye and he said, Lisa, you don't have to worry about this man anymore. He is gone and you'll never see him again. And, the reason the tears are here, because even though I had these challenges, my stories of being molested are so much softer, I'll say. I don't mean to say that any molestation is soft, but, there's so many people out there, whether you're male or female, that have far worse, stories and situations, and so I'm so grateful, that I'm pretty lucky that between Ray and the assistant principal of how that was all handled. And I know that I was being spiritually looked out for. And to this day, I have tried to, it's interesting because I've tried to find this Ray person. And he's nowhere to be found, and in the world of the whole internet and thing, I've been on Facebook and, my high school pages and all of that stuff and asking if anybody has seen this person, and all of their responses are something like, I've been searching for him too, and he's nowhere to be found. Or it's just like he just disappeared kind of thing, And so I would like confirmation if he's here because, he's a physical angel if he's here. But, it's very possible that he was an angel.
And I'm getting chills. I'm getting chills right now. So I don't know if it's because I'm in my cold basement or what, but I feel like this is more of spirit coming through and telling me he's here. He's here with you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
feedback. I really, really do. Thank you.
Yep.
So I definitely have, been watched out for, on the spiritual level through my life. And, when I went to tell my mother about this, the conversation kind of went, she said, Lisa, she said, did this man touch you? And I said, yes. And then that was the end of the conversation. There was nothing more, and so, and again, I still had to deal with that guilt of being a part of something sexual, at such a young age. So that was pretty tricky, but I did not have anyone to really talk to about anything, and the religion that I was raised in, there's really no confidence, or confidence isn't the right word. I lost my train of thought just a little bit. Give me one sec here. There's no when you tell somebody something about your story, the whole family is going to know.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And it's not necessarily so much as a gossip thing, but in the religion that I'm from, it's kind of what I've learned over the years is that there is, surveillance going on by, different members of the church. And so it's kind of taught to just, speak these things. The interesting part of that is it's don't deal with any of the feelings and, actually what's going on. It's more just like spoken words. So the spoken words feel very empty, at least it did to me, of such intimate things, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
And I was basically raised, to be, cute and quiet, and there was, something where I would just be automatic. I would be cute and quiet and I would find a man and I would be taken care of for the rest of my life and I would have babies and, and that is my life, So, and it was frustrating because, when I got older, I really recognized that, there was nothing there was no direction for me being, having a career or, how to be independent as far as financially taking care of myself and those kind of things. So it was kind of tricky. And then most of my childhood up till when I moved out of the house when I was 18, my parents were going through a very hard time in their marriage. And oh my goodness. And so my parents were, my mother, she ended up going to work for the first time in the marriage, and and her and my father were, they were dealing with them. My mother was, trying to deal with the relationship. My father had several affairs, and so I always felt like, I was always seen, and I can't say seen. My whole life I felt noticed by everybody, but seen by no one, kind of thing, and
Gotcha.
so, and so, you know, it's not that I am going to say that I was neglected or anything like that. My mom was just busy and her heart was hurt. And my dad was busy with whatever he was doing, and so there wasn't a lot of, and I was the fifth child, I mean, she was tired. I mean, the fifth child,
That's a lot of work.
it's a lot of work. And,
Yeah.
the child, there's no photos of you or very few, I mean, that's just, but the second child has half as much photos as the first child, kind of
Right.
thing. So,
Understood that one.
so, unfortunately, that's the energy, I guess I would say, that was around most of my growing up. I didn't have any rules. My oldest brother, I remember, many teenage fights. One of the things my mother really regretted was kicking him out of the house because he had brought in a pound of marijuana. It was in the 60s, and he was kicked out. And, I mean, they were very, very strict. By the time it got to me, it was my rules literally were be safe and don't wake me up.
Yeah.
And so that was really fun, as a child. But unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of lessons that are important to lead an independent life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. One thing that is important to mention, during this process, my dad, one of his, what do I say? He was not gonna let this go by. I mean, it was going to be, he's done with the church, and that was really a significant time. I was raised Mormon, and I can remember, my mom, when she finally took her garments off,
Right. Right.
And but my dad, looking back on this, we would go over to relatives' house, and it was just, there was so much tension, and it was all, and later on in my teenage years, it was like a rule, a law was made, that when we got together, there were two things we couldn't talk about, and that was business and religion, kind of thing, But my dad, looking back, I see so much strength in him of really taking a huge step in changing that DNA code kind of going on, and maybe he didn't change it all the way, but I think he was my direct example, because I feel like that's what I'm continuing that in a way now in my life, and I'm very, very grateful that he kind of laid out the stage for me to, say this religion doesn't work for me. And that was
Yeah.
very, 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 very hard, because growing up in the church, I always knew, I was told that we didn't shun and that kind of thing, but through my own experience and growing up, there's a lot of silent shunning that definitely, is most evident.
Yeah. And, you know, it- my family was kind of like that too, but we were not religious. And there were four of us kids. And I kind of was like that. I was the youngest of the four. And so, yeah, I get kind of that stepping of where you've come from. Seeing,
Awesome. I mean,
Seen
not
and not
awesome that
heard.
you had to experience that, but awesome to have somebody to relate with that.
Yeah, yeah. And we were always in the scene of you're seen but not heard. So we were always told to go play. Okay, we know you're here, but now go play. Go play.
Mhm.
Go
Gotcha.
outside. Go play. Yeah.
I understand that. I understand that. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, as I, grew up and got into relationships myself, and, none inside the church. Um, there, I always picked relationships with no promise. Um, and so I later learned that, through my parents' struggles, me and my brother next up from me, we were the ones that were in the house when these problems were going on, but they didn't talk to us about it. They told the other siblings, but then nothing was talked about. And, what I heard was the crying, and my parents were very, very good. They trying to keep the fighting away from the kids. They didn't want us. They always, shut the door and had their private, conversations, and it's not like I heard my mom crying like every night or anything. It was just every now and then,
Right.
with kind of the same frequency following that whole timeline kind of thing.
Yeah. I
But
I get you. I'm with you.
when she cried, there was one time where I remember just taking my covers and putting them over my face and going, and it was a pact with the universe. It was like, universe, I never want to feel like that cry sounds, because it was just agony.
Yeah.
So painful.
Yeah.
So what I did later in my life is, I chose relationships that I could not trust, and it was interesting because I could be the good person and
Hmm.
I could love them. I picked people who had stories, that they'd never been loved, and they were shut out here and shut out there. And, I'm just like, if you can have love, I can love you.
Right.
But in the back of my head, I was always picking these people to where I could be the good person. I could be there to love them, and do all these things for them. But they weren't trustable in the end, kind of thing. I hope that makes sense. But
You
that
got
was,
it.
I lost a lot of trust with my dad, and at one point in my life. And it was like, growing up, when I walked into the room, his eyes lit up. I was his little darling, and, I know he loved me tremendously. And we had a
Hmm.
very close relationship growing up. And I thought, if this man can break my trust, then there's no man that I'm going to be able to trust, kind of thing. So I guess I should have started out with that, but that's kind of why I chose these people, that somewhere in the back of my head, I knew that I wouldn't have to trust him, and I wouldn't have to have that broken heart like I had from my dad, which
Right.
there's no blame in
Right.
that. There's no, there, I'm over any hard feelings or anything. That's just how my
Hmm.
child, teenage self absorbed the information that was being presented in front of me.
Right. Right. And it's tough. It's tough for a child to be able to distinguish the good and bad when you're in this awkward position, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess one other thing, going back to the spiritual stuff, one other thing, even in my house, inside my house, I always felt like spirits were around me. I had a canopy bed, and every single night, I would hold onto the post of the bed, and I would take my foot and I would feel under my bed as far as I could get, but I would hold on that post in case something tried to get me.
Right.
And there was just, I never thought about this or anything, but I could never go to sleep with my any doors open, like to my closets or anything like that. I was always very, 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 very aware of my surroundings, because I was always feeling this whatever I was feeling that I could not talk about.
Right.
Let's see. Growing up, I was always, I gravitated to, anything that was on the spiritual level, that would be movies about, ghost things, or, my neighbor down the street, she had a Ouija board. I did that once and it freaked me out. But I did it because I was intrigued, I was always kind of gravitating to these kind of things. And I bought a tarot deck when my children were very young. And because I was always very interested, or curious, I should say, not so much interested. I was just very curious about the tarot deck. And the thing that was so interesting to me is that it was something that has been around for so many years. And it's never gone away. And at the same time, it was like, how can anybody look at a card and, know anything about me by describing a picture? Now I know that that's not what it's about, but, so I had this deck for years and years and years, just kind of I bring it out every now and then. And I, try getting a few cards out, and they just kind of, irritated me, because they looked like cards of work and agony.
Yeah. I can see that.
And so, I put them back, put the deck back for another 5, 6, 10 years, whatever, and then pull it out again, but that could become significant later on in my life. Then after I got married, I got married pretty young. My first husband, I got pregnant, and this was my one and only conversation with my parents that pertained to education. When I was pregnant, my father really did not like the person that I was with. And he said, Lisa, he said, what do I need to do? I'll send you to Hawaii and you can go to college in Hawaii, and that was the extent of my educational direction. And here I am, like, I'm going to want to go to Hawaii now while I'm pregnant, alone, scared to death.
Welcome to adulthood, right?
Right. So that marriage did not last too long. Gosh, I haven't thought about it in a long time, probably, 3, 4 years, something like that at the most. And then I got married again and had another son. And then that ended up not working out. In that marriage, though, recently, just in the past couple of, year or so, I have been guided by spirit to begin to share my story. And, I've often, just lately, I've wondered, in my second marriage, we were in a 12-step program. And it was the first time that I really spoke about my feelings, and I wonder if that was my preparation in some way now, to have given me a little bit of experience, because it would not surprise me, not one bit, if I hadn't had that this would not be happening.
I can see that. I can see that because they work in crazy ways that spirit does, and it'll bring you to a spot that you would never dream of.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, that's kind of cool because now I'm, have another opportunity to be grateful for situations that were not good. My second husband was not uh, there for all family members, I'll say.
Okay.
Let's see. So then I got divorced for the second time, and I went to massage school. I went, I was a certified massage therapist. Well, I still am, I guess. I just don't practice it. And body mind therapist, and a Reiki practitioner. Um, and life was going along somewhat okay. There was some strain with my, um, mother, just parenting kind of things. I'm not going to say that was an easy time in my life. I was now a single parent, and I was trying to figure things out. And I, wasn't aware of how much direction I did not get when it comes to career, and that kind of thing. So it was kind of tricky, but I ended up getting in a bad wreck. At the time, I was dating a musician, and we were at a gig in the mountains. And it was very, very interesting because it was an outside gig, and I was standing up on this rock wall, and I was looking up at the sky, and the connection again with some kind of something with the universe was there, similar to when I pulled the covers over. There was a different intensity in certain things in my life, and these two, definitely had that same intensity of some kind of odd connection.
Right.
And I put my arms in the air, and I was just like, this feels like freedom to me today. I just want more and more and more of this. And I said, please take these thoughts out of my head. The thoughts of worry and, responsibility in the way that I just wanted to be free and,
Mm-hmm.
and have life not so bloody heavy.
And that is hard in itself, right there.
Right. Right. And so, right after this moment took place, I turned around, still standing on the wall, and in the parking lot were three people on motorcycles, and they were getting ready to go off on a ride, and very stupidly and irresponsibly,
Yeah.
I said, I want to go on a ride with you, and I went on literally about maybe a 2-minute ride, and then ended up flying 60 feet and having a very intense, a brain injury, a traumatic brain injury. Um, wow.
It's like memories, huh? It's like
It
crazy
is.
stuff. Yeah.
It is, things that you don't think about every day, now. But in that accident, I ended up having a NDE, a near-death experience, and it was short. Well, it felt long while I was there. It felt short when I came to and remembered it. And it's not the typical near-death experience as far as, the white lights and the tunnel and, that kind of thing. All of a sudden for me, I was levitating in the air or wherever I was in this
Right.
space. And what I was looking at was this beach with the finest white sand I had ever seen in my life. Um, it was just like one step from being powder. Very, 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 very fine. And there was little sprigs of grass and little yellow and purple flowers that were sporadically dispersed. And I couldn't see the water, but it's like I knew it was there. And for some reason, that kind of that's something I always think about when I think about this experience of, I definitely did not see the water, but I felt it. And with the grass and the sand, each little particle, was like a little crystal, and they all had these amazing, abundance of color and colors like I had never seen before. The sprigs of grass, all I could see is a different level of life that was in the grass blades. And, same with the flowers, of course, the colors were just, I'll say purple and yellow and green and white, but they were just so much beyond what we know of, yellow and purple and green and white kind of thing.
Right, right. I've heard that, I've heard that the colors are just so much more vibrant than what they are on Earth. And go ahead.
You were cutting out a little bit on me, but but I think I got it. Like you've heard that the colors are just so much more than on Earth, kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's so very, very true. And, it's like you could communicate with all of these elements, which was interesting. There was definite connection, and the connection is what I would, say also involved communication with all of these living things. I could feel the colors, I could see the colors, I could smell the colors, I could hear the colors, I could taste the colors all simultaneously. It's like every single sensory that, we know of that we have was there, And then all of a sudden, I hear God's voice. I did not see him, but I very much heard God's voice, and very strongly and lovingly. He said, Lisa, you will be okay. And then again, he said, Lisa, you will be okay. And, and then that was I stayed there for a little bit, and then that was the end of it.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, very, very, very sweet and loving, and a wonderful, 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 wonderful place. When I came to, I was in a coma, or, I don't remember a whole lot, so I'm saying coma because I was out and not aware.
Right.
I don't remember a lot of stuff that happened to them, but I was in a coma for it was 2 or 3 weeks, something like 2.5 weeks, I think.
Wow.
And when I came to, that is, the memory of this was, it's ridiculous to even say it's a memory, because it was just there and so vivid of what I had just experienced, And it was kind of interesting because then I would hear things from the staff, and one of the nurses told me that when I came in, the ambulance, someone that was in the ambulance that brought me there was saying that I was in a battle, and that it was like I was in a war zone, and I was fighting and I was screaming and, all of this kind of stuff. I have no
Oh,
recollection,
wow.
but, that I find that very interesting because that's quite a contrast because that would be happening, while or immediately after this other experience kind of thing.
Well, do you think you went into maybe a past life during that
Perhaps,
time? And that
perhaps.
past life you were struggling because you were in a fight or flight. This is what's coming to me right here. You were like in a fight or flight situation, and with the accident, it just kind of pushed you into that memory, and so you went back to that.
Dana,
Resonate
that is
anything?
absolutely fascinating. And I have never, ever put those two things together. So, again, thank you for that feedback because that makes sense. That makes sense. And so I'm going to flirt around with exploring that. So, as of now. Thank you, because
Yes.
that really does, that resonates to where that is a possibility. And it's so interesting, again, like that, near death experience, and then this either simultaneously or directly after.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very, very interesting. And I don't remember any of that. And again, it's interesting that I remember every single detail of the NDE, which of course is common, but then
Right.
I remember nothing of being in a war zone. So it was described.
Yeah. So it kind of makes me wonder if that was some sort of like a past life that you went and revisited to help you with the situation that was currently going on at that time, maybe with your father or family or something. I'm not sure
That
about
makes
that.
sense. That makes
Okay.
sense. So I think it's probably for sure connected to something significant, or maybe just the fight that I was going to have in the next few years, something like that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was a long, recovery time, and so when I came to, also, I would mention this a little bit with the near death experience. I would mention it to a couple family members, and I'm not even sure which ones I did, but it was just, I kind of got the look like, yeah, bless their hearts, they were confused. They probably didn't know. With a brain injury, you don't know what your brain's doing, you know.
Right.
So they were probably going, is this, she's going to be thinking weird things the rest of her life because of this brain injury, if it was valid. But anyway, what
Yeah.
I got was, I'm not going to talk about it, or in detail, because it was just absolutely too precious and meaningful, and had a frequency of grace that I've never, and purity that I've never experienced, ever in my life, so.
Yeah.
Well, I every now and then, again, I don't, the time frame is kind of missed, in my memory, but ever sporadically through my recovery, I'd mention it here, I mention it there, but pretty much just one sentence of it. And then after that, I didn't mention it anymore, because it was just too meaningful to me. And then about, oh my gosh. And again, I don't remember exactly, but I want to say like a year and a half, 2 years. I think it was a year and a half, because in part of my therapy, I had to do something social every week. And that was extremely hard. And I should tell you that, I had to learn how to talk again as far as my enunciation. I had to learn how to take a shower again. I had to learn how to walk again. And I was never in a wheelchair. I could always, stand up and get somewhere. But the mechanics of my walking was all messed up. And so I for years I had to like learn how to put my heel down, roll down to the ball of my foot, and be conscious of all my toes touching the ground, and then keeping it steady, as I walked, kind of thing.
Right.
So the social thing was an important part of my therapy. It's also
Mm.
a part where I was very much judged because I was still with this, musician, and and as he was the drummer of the band, and I guess I should say that one of the things that happened in my wreck is that I could not identify my feelings. So if I was crying, I had no idea if they were happy tears, sad tears, angry tears, frustrated tears, overwhelmed tears. I had no clue. I couldn't identify madness, sadness, any of it.
Mm.
And when I would like go to practices with him and stuff, and just being around him while he practiced and stuff, there was something about that drum that I could identify with, or it made me feel something. I could feel the vibration within me and in my heart, and that is the only thing that I could identify with on a feeling level. And so I wanted more of that, and
Yeah.
so I ended up doing percussion in his band, and that was going to be my weekly, social thing. And it took some time, and when I say I got a lot of judgment, it was like, well, okay, she's got this brain injury and she can't work and she can't do this and she can't handle this, but she can go out to a bar, you know. But what they did not see was for, the first year of doing this, I would hang on to the belt loop of my boyfriend at the time. And I would look down at the floor and he would lead me through the bar to where we were going to set up, because the lights, the music, the people moving, the conversation going on was way too much for me to handle. I could not, I couldn't handle,
Wow.
and so he would lead me. Once I got to where I needed to set up, I was fine.
It was, yeah.
And percussion, keeping that beat, I could be in my heart space because that's what I could feel for the first time,
Yeah.
and I could go into my own little trance. So it gave me the ability to where I could block out everything going on, which is pretty amazing with a brain injury. So this is a powerful thing
Yeah.
I experienced, and I could
Hmm.
just get into that beat. And, it's very interesting because different musicians and whatnot, they were very aware of how steady I was in my beat. Now, they didn't know that I was going into my own little trance. That was the result of it. And that was how much I resonated with it, And again, that sounds
Wow.
like I'm tooting my own horn. But people that don't experience TBIs will never understand that. So I have to release that kind of judgment.
Yeah.
It was very, very significant in my life. And I have often
Yeah.
said that drums have saved my life. Because that is the first thing that I could feel, and I knew what it was. I could identify it.
Yeah. And that's like
So
that's a meditation right there for you. I mean, like you're
right.
saying, you went into a trance, beating on the drums or the percussion or whatnots that you had was oh, the hertz that you were needing. It was,
Yes.
yeah, it was the
Yes.
hertz that you were needing in order to open up the heart, in order to get the beats going and get everything kind of moving back and getting balanced again in your chakras and everything.
A
That's
hundred
what it sounds like
percent.
to me.
No, you're spot on. You're just spot on. And you know what? I remember thinking so many times, and what I would not only think it, but I would connect with it is the drum beat um, connected with the beat of the earth. If that doesn't sound too woo woo,
Oh no,
you
no,
know,
that
it
is
was
so
like
cool.
and so it was extremely
Yes,
grounding for me, you know, and it was a
yes,
grounding that I was unable to
yes,
do for myself, you know, and
yes.
with the brain injury, I'm here and there and, you know, don't even know where here is or there is. And to just kind of, you know, after my wreck, everything was like a movie. It was like, you know, I knew that I was a part of the movie, but I was always the observer, you know, and it was like I was there, but I was never a part of things, you know.
Right.
So
Oh, wow.
yeah, drums saved my life. And I, you
Yeah.
know, for later in my story, I should say that when I was a little girl, this became known to me several years after my brain injury. Um, but that same feeling of that movie is what I felt like when I went to church as a little girl.
Mhm.
You know, I would walk into this church and it was like, it's like it was a different world kind of thing. And it was absolutely like a movie, you know, and it was like the presentation of being very safe, but yet not safe. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that, you know, I was in an immediate physical danger or something like that. It was not a safe place to be my individual self. You know, it wasn't a place for me to live life, if that meant like
Right.
really live life, like those sweet little flowers in my NDE. You know, I mean, it was very stagnant. So anyway, that's the
Yeah.
same sensation that I think there's some significance in that because as my abilities changed after my TBI, traumatic brain injury, um, I put those two things together, and I've always been an observer, but this was a whole other level of being the observer kind of thing,
Wow.
you know. And what is, you know, what do we do when we have these abilities, you know, clairvoyancy, you know, we step back and we observe, you know. And so again, you know, I think these were, you know, meant to be things to spirit trying to wake me up, going, come on, girl, you got this. You know, it's time to, you know, do something with this kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to break in a little bit here. Our time is running short, but
Okay.
so I think right there is a great spot to kind of close it for the time being. But I thank you so much for being on the show, and we already have a second show lined up for you guys, so we are gonna continue this story soon. So be watching. So thank you again for being with us. And if anyone out there has any paranormal or supernatural stories you would like to share, please email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com. And don't forget to click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. And we will meet up with you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.